Hey, it's Chuck.
Yeah, so Ohio State, it's Ohio State. So, I mean, it's big time, you'll get developed there. Um, just it's Ohio State.
You know what I love? When you're describing a place and your description is, it's the place. It's that place. That's pretty good. It's implying like you obviously you know what it is. It's Ohio State. I love it. Let's get it.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And welcome in. Thank you so much for joining me today at Juck on Bucks. We've got a lot to get to today. We're going to start with Fahim Delane. So I was working yesterday on the show. I got about halfway through the episode. Then I got sidetracked with my show with Mr. Nolan. Didn't end up finishing the show. So everything I did is going to be loaded onto the back half of what I'm doing now. But a lot to cover. We do got an update on that story. But first, I want to talk about these official visits. I want to talk about Fahim Delane, as we now have 2 weeks in a row with absolutely enormous commitments. As last week, Bo tells Bama, no thanks, I'm good, I'm not coming down. And that was surprising. I expected him to take that visit. Ultimately expected him to be a Buckeye. Delane, I was not so sure on, but we went over the visits coming in last week. And in that preview, my feeling was Fahim Delane to me is the most important visitor, as with the way Trey McNutt has been trending, he is getting one of those two guys was just, I don't want to say a must get, but would take that safety room to next level. And it is now. It's next level. It's excellent. And this is just fantastic. This secondary, man. You know what else I love? It's very satisfying when you have a guy like Fahim Delane, who is Mr. All Everything, tell LSU, who's DBU according to them, no thanks, I'm not coming down for the visit. I really love that. Also told Oregon that, but I'm not going to gloat because the same thing just happened to us today with an offensive lineman who will not be taking his visit to Ohio State because he committed to Oregon today. So I can't really talk any smack about that one. We'll get into that offensive lineman situation later, as there were 3 offensive linemen that we're in on who came off the board today committing elsewhere. So not great, not fantastic, but right now I want to talk about the secondary. So we're going to be heavy on line. We'll get to that in a bit. But when we talk about the secondary, I've not had time to go back and look and do numbers, but just off my gut feeling, I mean, as it stands right now, this has got to be the greatest secondary class I've ever seen in my life. It is. We've had some good ones for sure. We've had ones where we've even had the number 1 and number 2 cornerback in them. The difference here is I feel like obviously we got the 3 amazing guys at the top with Naeem, Devin at corner, and Fahim Delane. Fahim Delane is the best player in the state of Maryland, a state that now produces as much NFL talent as, Ohio, North Carolina, Alabama. He's quick. He can play in the slot. Not a burner, but he's plenty fast for a guy that size, and he's big. Now, this is a big dude. 6'2", 200 pounds. He looks like he could easily, if he wanted to, get into straight up linebacker size. I mean, he's got a body and a frame that looks like if they wanted him to be bigger, he could be, but he shouldn't be, really. He needs to stay right where he's at. He's aggressive. The dude is aggressive, and he's got an attitude. His film is very exciting. He loves to blitz. He always gets too, though. Deshaun Stewart, who was a corner, right? A corner who absolutely mauled. I mean, this was a corner who is a hitter, who's long and covers great. So they complement each other really well. And when we talk about Cody Haddad, I mean, let's look at Cody Haddad here for a second. Very little fanfare with Cody Haddad for obvious reasons. But I want you to look at this guy for a second with the obvious, clear disadvantages. I mean, look at how I don't want to call him small. He's not big. He's certainly not big. He certainly doesn't look like a guy that you would figure would be any kind of priority recruit at a big-time school, let alone Ohio State. So we got to ask ourselves, how special must that guy be to get that kind of attention from Ohio State? They're not dummies. They know what they're doing, right? So obviously his film is great. We've watched it. We know his lineage, dad in the NFL, grandfather in the NFL. He's a great athlete. You can see that, but his size, it looks concerning. Such a sure tackler. He knows how to use it. He knows how to use it. And I just got to think, like, you must be really special with those clear disadvantages. You just got to be special. And I think he is. And would you doubt this guy's kid?
In the half, third quarter, the crossing pass to Mr. Haddad. Drew Haddad's going to do a great job of getting it deep into Euclid territory right there. And then watch him slant inside. Boom, gets it. Touchdown right there.
He was like the top of everything, you know, whether it was, you know, he even played baseball at the time. Baseball, basketball, football. He was just a great athlete back then. And St. Bernard's, we struggled with St. Angela's back in the day because of Drew.
He goes way back the pass, and he finds Drew Haddad. What a
and I think early on with Drew, I just appreciated the creativity he brought to the position. If we needed something special to happen, whether it was to make a big play to keep a drive alive, to return a kick that would put us in better field position, it was like, we got this because we've got Drew.
What gains credence in the locker room is what you do on the field. And most importantly, what you do on the practice field. Guys know who the people are who work hard. Guys know who the people are who are smart and clued in all the time. Drew was always the smartest guy. People gravitated to him because...
Amazing rookie Drew Haddad. Second time this year he's been in top plays. Second has 8 catches and 1 touchdown.
If I were coaching any team, I would love to have 11, 12 attitudes like Drew has.
If you had 53 Drew Haddads, you'd be in the Super Bowl every single year.
It's extremely humbling. I mean, it's exciting and humbling at the same time. A lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and like I try and teach my children and the kids that I coach, it's all about setting goals and never let anyone tell you that you can't achieve something, and be relentless in your approach and how you pursue those goals on a daily basis. And every day, if you get a win, you'll get closer to that goal.
Congratulations, Dad. We love you.
I'm not doubting that guy's kid. Different positions, but this dude reminds me of A.J. Hawk. Quiet, square-jawed, stone-cold beast, all about his football. I love it. I love the dude. I feel such an affinity for so many of the guys in this class, man. I really do. And it's only going to get better. So the Buckeyes are going to add at least one more guy into the secondary, and whether that's Dorian Brew, whether it's Brandon Finney, Messiah Delhomme, Kanoy Winston, any one of those guys makes this class it's already stellar, but it just makes it just next level. Hey, let's have a look at Brandon Finney.
He should beat him. Oh, what a day for Finney. What a day.
So he's a corner wide receiver. Big dude, top 200 overall prospect. And we can see right here, I mean, just look at that speed, that stride. Good size.
Snap, drops back, looks far side, throws far side. It's a deep pass.
Excellent receiver. A lot of schools are recruiting him as a receiver. The Bucks won him in the secondary. Brandon Finney, excellent. Messiah Delhomme, Kenoy Winston, other guys in the fold. Any one of those guys, adding just one more of them, takes this secondary, which is already maybe the best in school history, and just, it's, it's ridiculous. And Matt Guerrieri, who's landed all three of these safeties, is a guy who, when he came in, I really underestimated as a recruiter. I thought that this was just, okay. Day is keeping Knowles happy. Knowles is doing a great job. Give him his right-hand man, the guy he trusts the most. And I wasn't expecting a ton. But wow, we heard Deshaun Stewart when he was on the show talk about Matt Guerrieri. He said Matt Guerrieri said he's going to contact me every single day, and he did, or something to that effect, or he's going to know me better than I'm going to know him better than any other coach in the country, and he did. He was pretty blown away by him, and we're just seeing him get it done, man. He's getting it done. Really impressive performance from Matt Guerrieri so far. Really impressed. Huge props to him. Let's get into the rest of the official visits. So Jackson Lloyd was in town for his visit. Jackson Lloyd from Carmel, California, 6'7", 290, absolute unit. He's a guy that's also a basketball player, and he moves like it. 4-star top 200, and I think that's a low ranking. So coming into the weekend, it was thought that Alabama was the leader for his services. Steve Wiltfong, after the visit, came out and said that he thinks Ohio State is now in the pole position, though I'm very hesitant to take Wiltfong seriously anymore because he seems to have taken a much different approach since he joined On 3 from 24/7. I think he used to be much more cautious with saying things like this, and now I hear it more and more. And as we'll find out today later on when we talk about the linemen who are at schools that he didn't think they were going to be at, he's not getting a whole lot of things right anymore. But when we talk about Jackson Lloyd, Alabama, man, this dude's from California. This is a battle Justin Fry's got to win. He's got to win it. And why would he want to go down to Alabama to play for this new staff when he can come to Ohio State and play for Justin Fry? You know what I mean? So he's got to win it. Javon McFadden also had his visit, 6'5", 300 pounds. Also a guy out of Maryland. He's a 3-star. His offers do not match that of a normal 3-star prospect, but the Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State offer list. So now we've suspected for a while that we've been in the lead for Javon McFadden, and it sounds like this visit really helped. But he will not be making his decision till the football season. So that's not fantastic. Damian Shanklin was in town this week. Damian Shanklin was at LSU last week. And from everything he said, I just got the feeling LSU was really, he's been talking for a long time about it's the SEC or Ohio State. And everything he said after that LSU visit sounded like a dude that was just like enamored with LSU. So we'll see if the Buckeyes made some momentum here. I don't really have a good feel on this, but I really want this guy. He's from Indiana, 6'4", 230. I think he's special. I think he's a special player, as is Zion Grady, who's the other defensive end that we're in on from Alabama. And these two guys they're identical size. They play identical games, both freaky athletes. I just want one of them, right? Just one of them. Yeah, just give me one. But I did not get the feeling from his comments and everything I've read that since he came out of the visit, he said, the normal thing you would say. There's nothing in there that would make me say, he was much more, his comments were much more flattering towards LSU last week. We'll put it that way. So I'm not feeling great about Shanklin. I'm really not. And that's a bummer because he's right next door and I feel like we should have had him. But with two defensive ends in the class with London Merritt, who I love, and Zahir Mathis, who is also excellent, one more would be great, but it's not necessary. But Zion Grady or Damian Shanklin would be those two options. As Marion Dye, still listed as a defensive end. He's not, man. This dude's now pushing 275. He's a big dude. We could see it in his high school film. This guy's not, he's going to be an inside guy. But as far as those big boys in the middle, Trajan Odom, 6'4", 285. Let's pull up Trajan. He was in town for his official this week. So a 4-star out of North Carolina, top 300 prospect. Bucks have prioritized him for a little while. This is not a huge difference maker guy, but he's got a lot of potential. He said it was amazing, every aspect of the visit. Biggest thing that stood out to him was Larry Johnson. Hero Canoe is his host, so that makes me feel good. Buckeyes are in a good spot with him, but he said he's 100% going to take his last 2 visits. So ultimately, I would love to get Trajan Odom. I would love to get Marion Dye even more. And the number 1 guy on that list would be Malik Autry. Malik Autry is the Alabama guy. He's from Alabama. He's an Auburn commit, and he came up with Zion Grady, those 2 from Alabama. And they really enjoyed their visit. He's going to come for his official next week, and he's a difference maker. This is one of the classic big, massive 5-star dudes in the middle. I think that he is now maybe the next most important guy, as far as I'm concerned, for that defense. Now that Fahim is on board, but we're not. I don't believe we're in as good shape with Malik Autry as we were with Fahim. Sure, be great to get him though. Sure, be great to get him. Now, if you don't, you still got Trajan Odom in the fold. You still got Marion Dye in the fold. But you got to get one of those guys. You got to get one. You know, not a ton of depth in the middle coming up the pipeline. We got to get one of those guys. We got to keep trying to get these big bodies, taking these big swings. Malik Autry, they're really after him hard. I sure hope to make some progress here. But USC is coming hard. So USC has, obviously, we talked about Lincoln Riley's new defensive staff. They're all very excited, and they are coming very hard at big men on defense, paying them a lot of money to get them to come out to USC. And Malik Autry is now their target. And they are all of a sudden in the race for Malik Autry. So, you know, a little concerning there. You never know if somebody swoops in with an offer that, you know, Buckeyes aren't just going to match anybody's offer for any prospect. So they'll be like Georgia was with the guys that came down to Georgia and got committed to Georgia, who USC might not be able to keep, but they got their commitments with a big bag that Georgia's just not going to match. They don't need to for an in-state guy. They're not going to play that game. And to be honest, they don't have to. But Malik Autry, to me, man, we're talking now that Fahim is on board. Let's just say that on defense, this is the next most important guy to me, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not even close. Malik Autry. This would be the next wish list guy on defense. You know, Dorian Brew would be great, but that secondary looks fantastic as is. You know, you can piecemeal somebody else in there, even outside of that top 4 that are left on the board for us, and it's still going to be a great secondary. You add Malik Autry to this defensive line, and it goes from a nice-looking defensive line class to like, whoa. I want whoa. Whoa's good. Now, Marion Dye was up at Michigan this weekend, one of 5 guys who were up at Michigan. The other Buckeye lean that was up there was Jordan Davison, and it doesn't sound like he had a fantastic time. So good news there. Tony Alford has not improved as a recruiter, and Jordan Davison is going to leave Michigan without really, I don't think they're going to make his consideration board. So he's still going to be down to Oregon and Ohio State. Also in town this week, my number 1 wide receiver, outside of the number 1 wide receiver, DeCorian Moore, Quincy Porter. Now, I overheard 3 analysts say that they thought Quincy Porter was definitely going to come down to Ohio State and Michigan. They think he leans Michigan. Now, if any wide receiver chooses Michigan over Ohio State, I've decided it's not a wide receiver I want. It's just not. Honestly, if that's your choice as a wide receiver, I really question any judgment you will ever make in your life. Like how? Honestly, particularly right now with what's going on up there with their quarterback situation. Like, how do you look at that? The offense that they run, the head coach that they have, the same guy who ran the ball every play in the second half against Penn State, and think like, yeah, this is the place I ought to go to showcase my wide receiving skills. So if that happens, then I was just wrong on my evaluation of Quincy Porter. It's just that simple. But, what are you going to do? Tom Lloyd from 24/7 is the guy who made that prediction. So I shouldn't take it too seriously, as Tom Lloyd just said last week that he is still sticking with his Jamie French to Ohio State prediction. Even though Jamie French has all 4 of his official visits scheduled, not one to Ohio State, and is still saying he's planning on scheduling one to Ohio State in the fall, and he's going to commit before the fall. So that, remember, we updated that he was working on getting that schedule with Brian Hartline. So still not scheduled. They're working really hard. But anyway, Tom Lloyd still makes that call for Jamie French to Ohio State. He's the guy that said he thinks Quincy Morgan is leaning Michigan. So, it is what it is. That's what's going on here. All right. And one of the top 3 high school linemen I've ever seen in my life. I don't mean in terms of skills. All right. Let's say it that different. One of the top 3 most exciting linemen I've seen in my life. Now that is true. Andrew Stargle. Andrew Stargle, I already had him in the class. Locked up, throw away the key. He's a Buckeye. He's done.
Yeah, so Ohio State, it's Ohio State. So, I mean, it's big time, you'll get developed there. Just it's Ohio State.
You know what I love? When you're describing a place and your description is, it's the place. It's that place. That's pretty good. It's implying like you obviously what it is. It's Ohio State. I love it. I love it. I love Andrew Stargle. All right, and the rest of the visitors were guys who already committed. So Cody Haddad, Eli Lee, Des Jones. I just love it, man. I just love this class of dudes. I feel kind of a connection to all these guys. We've watched this come together slowly. Maybe it's because I've never spent time on a show talking about it so much, but I was looking back. So I've been saying this for a while, but my very first show, I actually said this.
Tavian St. Clair, another really vocal guy, and the leader of the class, Devin Sanchez, and his parents. What you've got going on is, in my opinion, one of these classes that we see every 5 or 6 years where you get a couple big dogs in early and they really take some pride in wanting to be part of a very special class, and they want to help recruit. And we got that going on. I think it's going to be a really special one.
And it's kind of been the mantra. I've repeated this for this entire class, that you really get this momentum that builds. And then everybody that comes in the class after those couple guys, that is now the culture that they inherit. Like, oh, this is how we do it. Okay, this is what we do here. You saw it with TJ Alford. He came in and took that same, okay, we recruit our own. Like, that's what we do. You saw it with Eli Lee. We've seen these guys come in. That was the culture instilled in them by Tavian, by Devin. We're going to get our guys. And they're all over. Like, they're working. You see them. I see them all the time on Twitter. These dudes are really working. You cannot beat that. You just can't. And that's why this thing is going to be so special. Additionally, I also said they're going to go way over the 21, 22-man class numbers they've been recruiting, and finally going to win the recruiting crown. And it's important. It's important to those guys in the class. It's as important to the guys in the following class. And then it becomes what you do when you're a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 player at your position. You go to the place that has the number 1 class. And that's how Alabama started piling that up, one after the next, after the next, after the next. Buckeyes are on their way, man. They're on their way. thanks to a couple of bold young men, and got ourselves a ball game, buddy. We got ourselves a ball game. Let's have a quick look at this nasty secondary real quick. So here's our nasty secondary, and it's just pretty to look at. Devin Sanchez, Naeem Offord, Fahim Delane, Cody Haddad, and Deshaun Stewart. Targets with some high confidence, Dorian Brew and Brandon Finney. Low confidence, Trey McNutt, Kenoi Winston, Messiah Delhomme. Messiah Delhomme is only a low confidence guy because we're high on the other two. I think if the Buckeyes really want him, they can get him. But we'll see what happens with Brew and Finney first. All right, let's take a look at this secondary just because it makes us smile. Take a look at those first 5 guys there, man. I mean, that is just insane to look at. Devin Sanchez, Naeem Offord, Fahim Delane, Cody Haddad, and Deshaun Stewart. Guys I got high confidence in, Dorian Brew and Brandon Finney. Low confidence, Trey McNutt, Kenoi Winston. I've actually got to change Messiah Delhomme. I feel better about him, but I'm not quite so sure how hard they're going after him just yet. At any rate, fun to look at. And the D-line. Now, Cole Breeler came off the board. Cole Breeler ended up committing to Stanford. So congratulations to him. But London Merritt, Zahir Mathis, the only 2 D linemen so far in the class. We talked about Marion Dye, Damian Shanklin, and Zion Grady. And there's our guy, Malik Autry. Moderate confidence for him. Trajan Odom, high confidence. All right, so let's get to this offensive line situation. So Zaire Addison, I talked to on Friday. And Friday, Zaire Addison told me he was coming in for a midweek, this week, official, which was going to be just him and the coaching staff. You know, when you get those officials midweek, you're a priority target. Zaire Addison went out to Oregon and done. He stayed. He's never coming home. So Zaire Addison off the board. Then Henry Finucane, who was at Ohio State for an official last week, came out of the visit. We all thought everything was great. He had a couple plans still to Missouri, A&M, and Georgia. And it kind of felt like this was going to come down to an Ohio State-Georgia thing. Now, remember, this is the guy who a lot of people were speculating would not make it out of Ohio State without a commitment. They thought that, you know, if anybody was going to commit last week, it was going to be Finucane. Well, Finucane had that happen, but not at Ohio State. He had it happen at Missouri, as he went to Missouri this past weekend and committed this morning. So, Zaire Addison off the board. Henry Finucane off the board. And Joshua Blackston committed to Rutgers. So what do we got in this big convoluted offensive line mess? We'll take it from the very top. Carter Lowe in the class. Excellent tackle. We know all about Carter. Andrew Stargell. He was in town for his visit. Official this weekend. Absolutely loved it. He's a center. I got him as a lock. He will make his announcement July 4th. But before that, he's going to visit Kentucky and NC State. Now, there's a thought when we talk about Jake Cook, our local guy from Westerville North, that Jake Cook and Andrew Stargell might be fighting for the same spot. Essentially, if Stargell makes the Buckeyes wait too long, they're going to go ahead and offer Jake Cook. And if they offer Jake Cook, Jake's going to take it in a New York minute. And that very well may have been the case until today. What's happened today, I think, with these guys coming off the board like this, rather unexpectedly, is it has opened up Jake Cook getting that offer, regardless of Andrew Stargell's making them wait till July 4th or whatever his decision is. And I now think that Jake Cook is going to get that offer. Now, the guys in yellow, David Sanders, Jackson Lloyd, Javon McFadden. High confidence, Josh Petty, moderate confidence. Micah DeBose and Caden Strayhorn, I don't have much confidence at all. My current projection for this line is this class: Carter Lowe, Andrew Stargell, Javon McFadden, and Jake Cook. Now you got the three awesome tackles at the bottom there, and David Sanders, Jackson Lloyd, or Josh Petty. Obviously, David Sanders would be the choice. Josh Petty, also fantastic. Jackson Lloyd, he may end up being just as good. He's certainly got the tools. So if you just get those top four, you've had a nice class. You really have. I think you've done some excellent evaluations with Stargell, McFadden, and I think that the flyer on Cook, who's made this crazy improvement and shown you just what a worker he is. We all know offensive line is so much of a developmental position. If that's the stuff you got in you, you're going to develop under the right coaching. So if they're confident in their abilities with their coaching, that guy's got their name written all over it. So this class, without one of those three tackles at the bottom, I feel great about. I'm giving a bravo on evaluations and keeping Carter Lowe in state. You did pretty doggone good. But if they can add one of those tackles on the bottom, and I mean one of them, it doesn't even need to be Sanders. You've now taken a bravo class to a fantastic class in a year. Remember, we went into this thinking they're probably only going to take three. It wasn't even supposed to be a wow class. But if you can add one more of those guys at the bottom, you've now got yourself a wow class. And it doesn't even have to be Sanders to make it a wow class. If it is Sanders, it's a holy wow class, right? Same with Petty. And who knows, may end up being that with Jackson Lloyd too. At any rate, very good evaluation on Stargell, who the big schools were not recruiting him. The Buckeyes got on him first. They found him, got on him. And obviously you heard him. I mean, it's Ohio State. Javon McFadden. Javon will not commit until the fall, which is another reason I think Jake Cook is going to get offered. If Cook gets offered, we know for sure Carter Lowe, Andrew Stargell, and Jake Cook in the class. And you guys know I love the Jake Cook man and the Stargell man. Those are our dudes. Juck on Buck faves. Absolutely. Absolute maulers. Maulers. I love offensive linemen who are just nasty. They're just mean, nasty dudes who put in the work. That's what it takes to be a good lineman. You cannot teach mean and aggressive. You just can't. So the biggest question is, if they do end up with that class with Carter Lowe, David Sanders, Josh Petty, or Jackson Lloyd, Javon McFadden, Andrew Stargell, and Jake Cook, how much of an apology do I owe Justin Fry? That's probably the biggest question of all this. We'll have to reevaluate if we get there and decide together, like we do so many things. All right, so guys, 4 months ago we started this show, right? And I know that so many of you have enjoyed watching this kind of go from John Q. Buckeye fan, deer in the headlights look 4 months ago to like rapid growth, to connections with players and parents and recruits, NIL brass. Like the craziest thing, as crazy as all that's been, the most bizarre thing is today when I woke up to a story in a website that I have read, I don't know, I probably logged into it 35,000 times in my life. In 24/7 Sports was an article about Juck on Buck's episode yesterday. Bizarre, man. Bizarre. Brad Crawford, nonetheless, the writer of the article, Brad Crawford, the #1 college football journalist in the inaugural Juck on Buck's poll for college football writers. Making a strong case for repeating after this. But just crazy, man. This has been crazy. And I just know that a lot of you guys are having fun, have encouraged me along the way. And I appreciate you guys a lot, man. I really do. Like, you know, if I didn't have anyone to like watch this and be like, isn't this crazy with, then it wouldn't be any fun. Because my family doesn't understand. Like I showed them that and they're like, oh, it's nice. Okay. You don't understand. You guys understand. That's crazy. Anyway, having a blast, guys. Anyway, that story, I want to pull this. So let me pull this up here for you. This was a comment by a listener today. In a hilarious twist of stupidity, 247 Bucknuts puts out an article today clearing up Air Nolan's status and cites this podcast and interview with his dad. They are clearing up a rumor they started and cite Juck as the one to clear it up. This reminds me of Kramer trying to return the very pants he was wearing. That's from JV 1817. Now, all right, so here's what happened. Obviously, we have the conversation yesterday. Okay, the conversation is about an article that started on Bucknuts. Bucknuts is a 24/7 property. So 24/7, the big dog, and they're owned by CBS, and then it feeds off into all the separate teams. Well, Bucknuts is under the 247 umbrella. Brad Crawford works for 24/7, the national publication. But whenever the national publication, 247, writes a story and it includes a team, then the story also gets published on that team's site. So it was on 24/7 and then also came on Bucknuts feed. Now, Brad Crawford obviously had no clue that it originated at Bucknuts. So he writes the story, then it spits out on Bucknuts, who at that point still had not made a single comment about it. And they still haven't, but they kind of did, as Patrick Murphy wrote this behind a paywall, not publicly, but behind a paywall. Apologies for no response to the other questions about this. I was not on the front row much over the weekend, and I did not see those. Without getting too much into the weeds on the BH, there are a lot of people who contribute information for it. I can't speak to where this came from, but clearly it should have been vetted more and handled better. While there is a disclaimer on the BH, we can certainly be better about things such as this, given what a stir it caused. I'm going to leave it at that since this was not my reporting, but I did want to respond with the little I know so our subscribers don't think they're being ignored. And again, that was behind the paywall. So that wasn't on the site. That was not public. Now, first off, props to him. He's the only one that said anything. From all accounts, everybody loves that guy. He's just a great dude. So, props to him. You know, he obviously didn't write it. But of note, you know, the whole thing's anonymous. So who knows who wrote it? At any rate, it is absolutely hilarious that Brad Crawford wrote that story on 247 Sports. Brad Crawford in that story features my tweet that I put out last night with a clip of it. It's all right there linked on the article. And he has no clue that the whole thing happened on Bucknuts. And then the story spits out on Bucknuts. Utterly hysterical. It really is. But anyway, that's over. All's well that ends well. Air's dad came off great. The response has been fantastic. And, you know, I think a lot of good might have come from it. So that's the end of today's show. So I'm going to put everything that I worked on yesterday before my interview with Mr. Noland and attach it on right here. And then I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Juggabucks out. Please like the video. Could you do that for me, please? You know, like, you guys are my pals, right? You are my pals, aren't you? We talked about Scott Lynch a couple weeks ago. Scott Lynch was the doctor at Penn State who was suing the Penn State hospital because he could not sue James Franklin because the statute of limitations had run up. But he was suing the hospital for wrongful termination. And Dr. Scott Lynch alleged that James Franklin was attempting to, through a lot of different ways in his testimony, basically get players to return back sooner to practice or games than the medical staff wanted. And he did this through, it sounds like, various ways of intimidation. The doctor highlighted instances of medical staff being afraid to tell Franklin about certain injuries for certain players. He also alleged that Franklin said that any player who misses their medical treatment, like a rehab or something, had to then come back to practice immediately. The doctor called Franklin out and said, in a nice email, he says that maybe you should think of a different form of punishment. This isn't exactly what we would recommend. And that apparently created a big wedge in the relationship right off the rip. So he sues them, the Penn State hospital, who he technically works for the hospital, and alleges that he was wrongfully terminated for kind of blowing the whistle on this whole ordeal. He won this week, $5.25 million from a Pennsylvania jury. So he comes out and says that he hopes that the money awarded in this case is going to prompt schools to pay more attention to the issue of coaches interfering with medical decisions. This is bigger than just Penn State, Lynch told ESPN. It's really a national crisis and things have to change. So the jury found his statements to be pretty authentic in his testimony about what was going on there at Penn State. And this day and age, with player safety being kind of at the forefront of everything, rule changes. I mean, so many rules have changed due to player safety. Doctors have to have autonomous authority. You cannot, this sounds like 30 years ago in every decade prior, where the football coach kind of ruled through intimidation with things like this. It's unacceptable. There's no place for it. I'm certainly no softy when it comes to stuff like this, but this really rubs me the wrong way when we're talking about the medical team saying like, no, they're not ready to go back. And they're afraid to go tell Franklin about the injuries. Like, come on, dude. That's like, I don't know, man, that really rubbed me the wrong way. Now, the salacious headline about this was most likely a roster management scholarship number deal. The salacious headline that we all read a couple weeks ago was about a guy who had attempted to commit suicide and was in care for that. And it was about Franklin supposedly pulling his scholarship. Now, in that particular case, I think that's kind of a one-off that's really different than the real issue at hand here. And the issue is returning guys that the medical staff didn't want them returned, and he was trying to bring them back faster through intimidation to get his way. That seems to be the bigger issue, and the jury agreed with that. The other ordeal was, that guy was still going to be able to go to school, but they were using that scholarship number for another football player. And that guy could have come back to the team, after his treatment was done. But most likely that would not have been for a good while. So, doctor wins $5.25 million, trying to bring awareness to this. And like I said, in today's era, you just can't be screwing around like this. That's a pretty shameful thing. Now, Penn State alleged that the reason they fired him is because he lives in Hershey, PA, not in State College, PA. And there were a couple instances of guys going to Hershey, Penn State players, to get operations at the Hershey Hospital because Dr. Scott Lynch did not have the authority to do surgeries as the lead surgeon. He could only be the assistant at the Penn State Hospital. So it sounds like, there is maybe some validity there to that argument, but the jury didn't see it that way. They saw that he was wrongfully terminated and gave him $5 million. College football legend Vince Young is playing in a golf pro-am this week, his first ever.
Young playing this week, he is down with Warren.
6 seasons in the NFL, arguably one of the best NCAA quarterbacks of all time at Texas. Picked up golf about 4 years ago. What's the biggest shift you make going from the ultimate team sport to now the ultimate individual sport?
Now, I apologize. You have the wrong person. I'm Everett Sands over City Level, which I'm a football coach. But the thing is, the great thing about golf is I'm not only competing against myself, but I'm competing against everybody else.
This is your first pro-am ever playing, and what's the best part of being out here?
Well, being out here is a great thing, and having an opportunity to play with some professional golfers is a intimidating thing, but also a great thing.
Good luck this weekend.
Hey, I appreciate it.
So obviously not Vince. She didn't get it because her follow-up question was, this is your first time in a pro-am. It's not. That's Everett Sands. He's a coach at the Citadel. And this is Everett Sands with Vince at the tournament. As you can see, a slight difference between these two gentlemen here. But our dear host at the Golf Channel obviously has never watched a football game in her life. I found that pretty funny. The college football playoff schedule has come out, and this is pretty interesting. Now, what they've done is, well, first off, we can say that we have got games on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 6 different days of the week, we have playoff games. They put about 10 days between the first round and the quarterfinals, and then your standard 7 after that, 7 to 8 after that. But yeah, man, we're talking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're going to see a playoff game on a Wednesday and a Tuesday. Like that's, I don't know. That's going to be weird watching a big time college football game on a Wednesday. Being the 5 seed in this tournament is almost like you don't want to play that extra game, obviously. But if you're the 5 seed in this tournament, we could just look over here. Look down to the bottom left there, and you'll see TCU. And this is just a old doing the bracket in an older year. So TCU as the 5 seed, they get to play usually it's going to be the G5 team. So you're the 5 seed, you get to play the first round playoff game at home. You get to play the group of 5 team. Then you get 10 days off after that game. And then you play the 4 seed in your next game. So you got an evenly matched game in the following week in the quarterfinals. In your first game, you get to play the group of 5 team with the 10-day rest. Now, that home game is a big money game. Not that that matters to any of us, but I sure would love to see the Buckeyes play a home game in the playoffs. So if they ever get the 5 seed, which I'm sure at some point they will, it's going to be a pretty ideal situation. But when you look at the 1 seed, I mean, just looking at the bracket, and I guess I hadn't really considered this, but look at that advantage the 1 seed has playing the winner of 8-9. Generally not going to be the best team. That's a big advantage. That's a really big advantage. I want that 1 seed. The 2 seed's going to end up playing 7 and 10, which still pretty nice. The 3 seed gets kind of tough, and the 4 seed really tough because the 4 seed you're playing a team just like you in the next round. So really interesting. All right, I stumbled across this and I want to share. For nothing else than the number 1 team is interesting in this. So this is the teams with the longest streak without a losing season. Number 9, we got a tie between Oregon and Notre Dame. Number 8, Utah. Number 7, Iowa. Number 6, Ohio State, who would be number 1 if they had not played in the 2011 Gator Bowl, which is a game that cost us a national championship berth the following year, probably a victory against a lousy Notre Dame team. So that would have been number 1. We would be sitting number 1 in this meaningless statistic. Tied number 4, Georgia and Clemson. Number 3, Alabama. Number 2, Oklahoma State. How about the Pokes? And the number 1 team, the Ugly Dubs, the Wisconsin Badgers. Congrats to the Badgers on the team with the longest streak without a losing season. And I suspect that Coach Fickle will keep it that way. All right, let's go over a couple of our studs who are competing in some 7-on-7 tournaments. We got the OT7 Nationals in Tampa, and this is a 3-day 7-on-7 event that is the best of the best. Here is a report from that tournament.
I thought the best DB on the field today, John. Listen, first of all, he's one of the most physically impressive corners in the entire country. He's every bit of 6'2". He's long. He's extremely disciplined. We saw him with one of the best interceptions, one of the best plays overall, day 1.
Wasn't challenged much, but when he was,
he made him pay.
Yeah.
He was sticky when he did have to cover. And then on the other side of the ball, a big day from 2026 5-star Chris Henry Jr. We know the son of the late great Chris Henry, who played for the Bengals. Chris Henry Jr. is everything and then some. We saw him winning deep today. We saw him battling in the red zone, making contested catches, using his size and his frame, being tough, winning on a lot of jump balls. I thought it was a really impressive performance from Chris Henry, who kind of caught your eye.
So Devin Sanchez won the Alpha Dog from 247 for that tournament, which means he was the top guy in the entire tournament. That's Devin getting up. Straight up superstar. Vernell Brown was another guy who performed great. This is from 247. No one was more electric Friday in catch and run situations than Vernell Brown. He zigged and zagged his way through traffic to move the chains. What also stood out about Brown was how he was able to go up and come down with jump balls over much larger defenders. Brown's explosive tendencies were a big reason why he rose in last month's top 247 update. Receiver Chris Henry Jr., obviously been a Buckeye commit for over a year now. Arguably the top overall player in the class of 2026 at 6'5", 205. He transferred out to Mater Dei. They caught up with him, and he said everything is cool. The love is still the same regarding Ohio State. The chemistry is there. We talk a lot. Everything's been answered. I feel like it's exactly where I'm going to go. This summer, he'll return to Ohio State, and he's also going to visit LSU in Oregon. Everything is good. We have a great relationship, said Henry of Oregon. Coach Adams and Coach Lanning, great guys. They're showing me that they love me, their history. They develop receivers there. He also added about LSU. They put out some really great receivers. All right, let's get to some of our comments. It was off the hook this week, guys. Listen, anytime I talk about quarterbacks or Michigan, like it goes bananas with you guys, man. I'm telling you what. Absolutely bananas. And I just want to stress this, guys. Like there is no reason for us as Buckeye fans to be in one quarterback's camp so hard that we dislike the other guys or talk negatively about them. There's just no reason. It's totally unnecessary. These are all our guys. You know what I mean? Like, I understand the tendency to want to do that because you're rooting for your guy and we all want to be right about whoever our guy is. But when we talk about the other guy sucks and we hope he gets injured, like I hear some people say, like, you know, maybe you should just reevaluate how you're feeling about the situation and recognize these are all our guys. And just a suggestion. I respect everybody's opinion. I really, you know, like if you got something like that to say, like, you know, I don't want to hear it. I really don't. Hi, Juck fam. Hey, Jeff. Jeff says hello every day. Appreciate you, Jeff. Curse Designs LLC. CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles should be starting flat out. Two of the best athletes that will be on the field. And if they aren't, then we need to learn how to rotate flat out. I still don't know why Simon earned his starting spot, but CJ and Sonny are battling it out. Sonny is one of the best players on the team, so CJ is the odd man out. Well, am I the only one in the Cody Simon fan club? Maybe so. I absolutely love Sonny Styles. He's one of the favorite, maybe like one of my top 5 prospects coming in to Ohio State in the last 5 years. And CJ Hicks has been kind of slow to get things. We're hearing that he's getting it now. We saw some stuff in spring that gave us some confidence about it. We haven't seen it in the game yet. Cody Simon, on the other hand, is way underrated as an athlete. We're talking about a really good athlete here. Extremely well respected by the team. He's a green dot guy. I feel very confident with him wearing the green dot now that we've got this communication. And I think that's going to be way more important than we're giving it credit for. Additionally, he's an absolute stud. He played a ton last year. That play he made at Notre Dame was one of the top 5 plays of the season for the Buckeyes. That 4th down stop he had. Seriously. Now, it's difficult for me as well because there's part of me that says, like, you know, we see other schools that recruit on our level and they just play their freaks no matter what. They just, I don't care about the leadership. I don't care about the smart guy. I'm putting in my freaks and I'm letting my freaks work and they'll figure it out eventually. And a lot of times they're right. A lot of times they do. So there's part of me that feels, like, but then there's the other part. The other part is when I was younger, I used to always feel like get the freakiest guys out there and let them play. I don't care if they're young. I don't care if they're inexperienced. The older I get, the more I lean towards the Cody Simon stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. But I certainly see where you guys are coming from, because I definitely used to always lean towards that direction. The older I get, the more I respect and appreciate the Cody Simons and the Tommy Eichenbergs of the world. But yes, I totally understand where you're coming from. I want those freaks out there too. And I want there to be a healthy rotation between those three guys. Honestly, I want to see Arvell in there too. I want to see Gabe in there too. Like, I want to see all these dudes. And the good news is James thinks he's got 5. He told us that. So he wants to play depth. He's angry at himself for not playing Cody more last year and putting, playing 3 a lot. So, I'm going to take him at his word. He said he thinks we have 5. Let's go. Let's see it. But I think they're all going to get plenty of playing time. Did you guys see that? That thing just popped up. Did that pop up when I did that? That was funky.